So many professionals think that confidence is probably going to come when they can see the spiral coming and be able to talk themselves down a little bit faster. Or they've got the tools to manage the anxiety that keeps them up at night before presentations. Or if they can just monitor their performance so carefully and so perfectly to make sure that everything is going to be okay. Most people who come to work with me, their expectations for what can be achieved around how confident they feel at work are actually quite low. My confidence and my expectations, on the other hand, are quite high. Because one of the biggest signs of genuine confidence growth that I see with clients is not being able to see the spiral coming and talking themselves down faster or managing or controlling the anxiety that comes up. It's actually the opposite. You just stop thinking about things so much. You just feel different in the moment so you can just get on with your job. It's not forcing confidence and using tools and tricks. It's when your whole system stops treating that situation as a threat so you can just chill out. In this episode, I want to help you to understand the work that I do with clients and what's possible. Welcome to the Confident at Work podcast. I'm your host and your confidence coach, Anna Manning. So I want to talk today about why when clients really make transformational change, confidence often feels surprisingly normal or not really like confidence at all. So if you go and look on the page of my website, which is client testimonials, they always come to me talking and asking about confidence. But you will notice that in those testimonials, they don't always even mention the word. And that's what genuine transformation in terms of your confidence looks like. It's it kind of becoming a bit of a non-issue, not something that you have to force or fake or even bother about that much, because you're just busy kind of getting on with it, just doing your day to day. And those situations that once felt so terrible, so threatening, so awful, just start to feel like the other moments in your day where you're getting on with things. So when confidence really starts changing, people often stop talking about it altogether. They'll say things like, oh, it's just myself. Oh, it was okay. Oh, I felt fine. Like it's no big deal. When we'd been working on that thing, which was such a big deal, so scary, so terrifying, so panic and anxiety inducing, that they'd come to me for help with it. And here they are saying, oh, yeah, it was fine. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, it went well. I was just myself. Felt relaxed. Well, I even challenged some views, or I kind of even enjoyed myself. And that is very different from the usual idea that people have as confidence being very effortful and being about performance and being about self-management. And that is where you might be focused. So I want to share with you 4 client examples, 4 normal moments, things that people come to me with that show you what's possible when confidence goes from, I need to feel confident in this big, scary, awful situation to, yeah, it was fine. It's just a normal day. And our 4 examples are delivering training for a client, being in an executive level meeting, presenting to a big audience, and being in a board meeting. So these are standard things that I work with clients on all the time. And these are just 4 standard outcomes that you're going to hear about today. So I want to share a little bit of the science behind what's happening when we're in moments, maybe like presentations, like exec meetings, like board meetings, or like client training that ordinarily we might panic or feel really stressed about. Your whole system, brain, body, nervous system, learns associations and it works on pattern and prediction. So if a situation like presenting or, speaking in front of people or being in an exec meeting or whatever has become linked with stress, threat, risk, danger, then your brain is going to predict that anxiety automatically, right? You don't need to conjure up fear when you think about that situation. It just appears, right? The knot appears in your stomach or your throat just suddenly goes tight. And it's not just when you're actually in the situation. It's before you even got there. So let's say you're terribly afraid of presenting and there's a presentation that you've got to meet next week. If I ask you to just think about it, or you just talk about it, guaranteed you're going to feel a little bit of that tension and that anxiety, however that feels to you, because you have this association, this prediction. So whenever you think about it, the whole system activates, and the system includes the worries, the doubts, the fears, and all of the emotion that goes with it. But if someone experiences something completely different, safety, calm, effectiveness, authority, that whole system that's operating can update. So let's take that presentation example. If I'm working with a client on a presentation, and you're going to hear a real life example after this, and I can get them to imagine it, visualize it, but from a place of very calm, safe, effective, grounded, strong, right? Whatever it is they want, they would need to feel effective and to do really well in that moment. If I can get them to experience that and visualize it in their mind in real time in a session, that whole system can update. So instead of our system reading presentation equals dangerous, our brain and our body starts learning presentation manageable, okay, just a room full of people, safe, normal. And it even very often can feel quite weird to clients when it works. So even though they've come to me because they're scared of a presentation, for example, and they want to feel okay about it, when they suddenly feel okay about it, it can feel really odd to them. How is it that I'm now feeling fine when all those times before I felt terrible? So this is as much for my clients that I'm working with or that I know I'm going to work with, as well as everyone else. I want you to know what kind of work, what kind of change is actually possible, even if you've experienced something your entire career. And I want you to kind of get why it's happening. So here are our 4 examples, day-to-day working life examples that illustrate what actually happens when a client goes from threat, danger to safe, okay. When the association around that situation changes because of the work that we do in the session, the update work that their brain and their system does, the whole experience is different. So my first example is a client that was delivering training for one of their clients. And my client says to me, I'm terrified of doing this. I'm terrified of judgment. I'm terrified of the Q&A. I'm terrified of them asking me questions that I don't know the answer to. And this kind of threat level for this client, it feels really high. It feels super hard for her to do this. So we do the work in the session. We worked through how she wanted to feel: calm, safe, trust, being able to deal with those tricky moments, even being able to deal with a Q&A where someone did ask her a question and she didn't actually know the answer. So we work through all of those live in the session, and I get her to imagine she's actually in that moment and speaking to me from that moment and experiencing it, but in a totally different way. In a way where she feels calm and she feels safe, and we watch what changes. And even in the moment, she says, oh, well, it's okay, it's a room full of people. It's just some people. They're actually kind of nice people. They're there because they want to learn something, and I've got some information that I can share with them. I can help them to learn. So it goes from this is threatening and awful and dangerous and risky to this is okay. This is a room of people. I've got something that I know about that they want to know about, and I can share it with them. Right, bearing in mind we've done work for a little while together. This is one session particular that we focus on, this one training, which is coming up. And I like to test it at the end of the session. I like to do what they call a validation step. Test how a client feels about it. So I ask them to look at it in their diary, that training that they've got coming up next week. I say, look at that in your diary for me. How do you feel now when you look at that? And the client says, yeah, fine. I can't elicit an emotional response. So remember, before, when they talked about it or thought about it, they would start to feel panic, anxiety, etc. But now, when I ask them, how do you feel about it? And they're looking at it in their diary, they're like, yeah, fine. I couldn't actually elicit that emotional response. So I think, okay, I think that's worked. but we'll see. And the client confirms. She's checking in. I say, how did it go? She says, the total opposite to how I feel these things have gone before. For the first time, there was minimal anxiety, no sleepless nights, and no crippling dread in the days leading up to it. I was able to enjoy my time off without being overshadowed by worry. And hilariously, she actually said, I was so relaxed, I nearly underestimated the preparation required. But she completed her prep. She did everything she needed to do. She said when she went in there, she felt slightly nervous but composed. No shaking, no feeling sick. Nothing overwhelming or debilitating. She said she was relaxed and conversational throughout. Comfortable enough to take questions and handle them. Honestly, just so good, were her words. So that's what's possible. Now, that client probably didn't think that that was going to be possible when she came to work on her confidence. Obviously, she hoped for an improvement, otherwise she never would have hired me. But the idea that something could go from 10 out of 10 feeling awful to it felt fine, a little bit nervous, dealt with everything really well, really happy with how it went. That's beyond most people's expectation. And it might be beyond yours. So you might have been thinking, oh, the only thing that I can do is try to manage the nerves and try to manage the anxiety and try to find tools and breathing exercises that are going to help me to feel better once this awful state of crippling anxiety has arisen. And I want to say, I hope for better than that for you. If we get this work right, you shouldn't have to do all that monitoring and trying to feel okay and forcing yourself and tools and tricks. You should start reinterpreting the situation as safe, as okay, and be able to go in there and just do what you would do. If we're getting this work right, you don't need to work hard to feel okay. You just do. So here's example 2, an executive meeting. This client is now an executive. She's director level in her organization. And she came to me wanting to feel more confident at that level, being in those meetings, speaking in those meetings, not having to worry about what people thought, not having to kind of monitor, not having to check herself and worry. She wanted to be able to be confident, to be herself, to participate. And again, we did similar work in the session. We put the client in the situation, in their mind, not in reality, just in their mind. And we have them think through and feel through how it will be different when they get to where they want to get to. What will be happening? And this client talked about a calmness and a curiosity, interest in the conversation that was happening. Having a calm mind, seeing everyone just as normal people that were just having a conversation about some topics. And when she felt like that, she noticed that she also had thoughts and opinions about those same topics. And when she felt fine and she felt calm, she could just share those opinions about those topics. And even if someone didn't agree with her, she could be okay with that. So again, we check in the next session. How did that meeting go? What happened? How did you feel? And this client says, yeah, I actually enjoyed it. I was present. I didn't get in my head. I was just there. I was able to respond to things. I was able to challenge. I was able to share my opinions. And her key learning was, when I'm just allowed to be there as me, I'm more effective. So confidence for her, it wasn't about like hyping herself up or thinking about how she was performing or any of that. It was just being able to go in there and just be her. She had the opinion, she had the expertise, she had the role. And when we took away the panic and the worry and the getting in her head, she could just be there and do the things that she needed to do. Contribute, listen, challenge, be curious, and enjoy it. What did she find when she reduced all that self-monitoring and that noise in her head and her presence increased? She found that she could be really effective, and it really was the best way of doing her role. And that she even enjoyed it. Now she doesn't have to overthink them before she goes into them. Now she doesn't have to spend all her time when she's in them overthinking them. She doesn't have to get in her head. She doesn't have to be nervous. She doesn't have to be worried. She can just go in there and be herself, do what she needs to do, and then come away again. Get on with the rest of her day. That's what we want. Our third example is of a client, and this isn't even a one-on-one coaching client. This is a client who's in the Confident Network program. And this client asked for coaching. She put up her hand in the group call and she asked for coaching around a presentation that she was going to be making. She spoke about having to over prep everything and feeling really tense and really nervous and, having a lot of internal pressure and worrying about everything. And again, we did the same thing. We coached through it from the place of, how does she want to feel? How does she want things to go? What does she want it to be like when she stands up there at that podium and looks out at that room of people? We did that work in the session in, I don't know, it was probably 10 minutes or less. And again, I do the validation step at the end and I say, okay, well, when you think about that presentation now, how do you feel? And she said, yeah, okay. I feel like I want to get to work on, doing my prep and getting ready for it. So I was like, great, okay. And then we check in. How did it go? And she said, the presentation went really well. She told us how the room was set up really strangely, which kind of didn't make it easy because it was not what she was expecting. But she said, if you told me the week before that that is what I was about to walk into, that really strange setup, I would have had an absolute breakdown about it. Instead, she said, I didn't have one nervous moment. I just spoke with passion, and dare I even say, I enjoyed it. This is what we're here for. Right? Maybe this client thought, maybe like you do, it's just a case of using tools to manage the tension. But that's not really the work that we want to do. The work that we want to do is to get you stood up there feeling how you want to feel, speaking with passion, enjoying it. Right? When this work works, that's what we can do. And that was what we did for this client. She's not even a one-on-one client, right? Again, she's in the Confident at Work program. She just stuck up her hand and asked for coaching about a presentation. And here's our last example. This is of a board meeting. This client gives updates from her area at a board meeting. And this is a huge organization, huge contracts. And of course, there is kind of board level pressure. There is visibility. There is evaluation. It feels like high stakes. And she described when she came to work with me that the pattern was she did a lot of self-analysis before checking, monitoring. She felt a lot of anxiety. And then she would kind of review herself afterwards, check through everything, think, why did you say this? Why didn't you say that? Come on, you need to do this. You need to do it like this. You need to do it like that. But once we'd coached through, and again, we thought about being actually in this board meeting, feeling the way that she wanted to feel, confident, calm, focused. And we went through and helped her system to update from anxiety to confident, calm, and focused. And from that place, she could see that this was actually just a room full of people that wanted an update and that she had the experience and the information to give it to them. And when you think about it, this is often the case, right? The situation that you're in, whether it's a presentation or a board meeting or whatever, it literally is you and some other people, and you are saying some things to those other people. That's actually what's happening. But the fear and the anxiety around it make it feel like this huge, awful, dangerous thing. And again, in this instance, we come back for the next coaching session, we check on how it went. And the client said, yeah, it went fine. This was a really interesting one because the client said her experience of that board meeting was the anxiety was no longer a part of me. It was outside of me. Super interesting. However, she could still see it in the room. But she could be there. She could do what she needed to do. She was calm, she was confident, she was focused. But she could still see this anxiety or experience it being outside of her. So we had a step 2 to do on that one. And I said, how do you, where do you want that anxiety to be? Are you happy for it to just be on the outside of you and in the room? She said, well, no, ideally, it wouldn't be in the room. So I said, okay, we went back in. We saw it there. We imagined it in the room. I said, what would you like to do with it? And she said, I'd like to open the door and put it behind the door and then close the door. So we did that in her imagination. What's it like when the anxiety is no longer in the room? When it's now behind the door, what changes? And she says, oh, my shoulders come down, I'm calm, I'm etc., etc. Then we check the next session. This time the anxiety wasn't in the room. It's actually now just gone. It's in the old world. And now she's in the new world. Now, as you can imagine, these changes, because they feel quite sudden, can feel really quite strange for a client. So I like to try and set people up with an understanding of what work we're trying to do and what it's going to be like if it works and why it's happening. Because often it's quite odd for people to have this change happen in real time. So sometimes they might go looking for the old anxiety. They might be checking, oh, am I anxious? Am I nervous? Like, where is that feeling? And they might even become a bit unsettled by the ease, by the different feeling. So remember, the goal isn't to become brilliant at managing anxiety or panic or nerves. The goal is for it to change so that it doesn't require so much management. And I want to be very clear. This is not magic. It feels sometimes quite odd and a little bit magical, but it definitely isn't. We are doing change work at a system level, nervous system calming, memory reconsolidation, which allows people to be calm enough to be in the situation and do what it is that they've always been able to do. They've always been able to have a conversation with people. They've always been able to share information. The problem was that they couldn't do that while they were feeling so stressed and anxious. But if the stress and anxiety aren't there, they find, oh yeah, I can at that level or in that environment still have a conversation, still talk to people, still give people information. And in all of those examples, the strongest sign that confidence is really becoming real is that it no longer takes up all their attention. It no longer dominates. So you can just be present where you are. You can just be natural. You can be yourself. You don't have to do all that internal management or monitoring or checking or worrying because you feel okay. Often that's the moment people realize something's really changed. When I ask them about something and they're like, oh yeah, I haven't thought about that for a while. Yeah, it was fine. And that's really where I want to get to. And the place that this kind of change work is supposed to help you get to. They're just 4 everyday examples, but what's yours? What's the place, the moment at work, or the moments where you just like to be able to feel calm, focused, clear, okay, neutral, so that you can just do your thing, do what you need to do? And I don't want to say that you can just necessarily make this kind of change from listening to a podcast episode. It might actually be that will get you so far, and it won't get you all the way. I want the podcast to be things that you can implement, tools that you can use. But the truth is, when it comes to these levels of anxiety and fear, tools aren't enough. They don't create the kind of change which is enabling. They don't turn the fear down. They just aim to kind of help you to deal with it. So I hesitated to share this kind of work on the podcast because the truth is I don't know whether you can do this kind of work without coming to work with a change worker like someone like me. And so I didn't really want to share it because I want you to be able to use things yourself. And I don't want people to think, well, unless I go and get Anna to help me sort that out, it's impossible, because I don't believe that it is. But there are some things where if they present that level of difficulty for you, you may need a proper change worker to help you to rewrite that underlying system response. But it can be rewritten. So there definitely is hope. And if you would like to come and do that work with me, head to the link in the show notes and book a call. I'll listen to the challenge and I'll explain how I work. I'll tell you if I think I can help, and I'll tell you if I think I can't. I also mentioned the Confident at Work program today. One of our clients who did the presentation is in the Confident at Work program. She's making great strides forward. If you would like to explore joining the Confident at Work program, also feel free to book a call. All right, I will see you in next week's episode. Bye.
Confident, confident, confident. I can be confident, 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 confident.